Wondering what life is really like on Canada's wild and crazy West Coast? This podcast is all about the people, the places, and Vancouver Island time. Together, we'll explore this island paradise, a combination of ocean, city, and country living. We'll meet the fabulous locals, such as the Fudge Fairy and the Chicken Lady, who have chosen Victoria and Vancouver Island as their home. And we'll learn what makes this place unique and special to those who live here. And now, your host of Vancouver Island Time, Jane Johnston.
Hi everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun and host of Vancouver Island Time. I'm here with Mike Reilly with what company?
I'm an agent with Freedom 55 Financial.
And we are going to be talking about the Colwood area. So how long have you lived in Colwood?
I've lived in Colwood for almost 10 years. I first moved there after my wife and I got married, and she already owned the house, and it just kind of made sense for me to move in too.
Where did you move from?
I was living in Shawnigan.
And so did you grow up in Shawnigan?
No, I grew up in Southern Ontario. I grew up in Kitchener, and I've lived in Kitchener and Hamilton and Kelowna and Winnipeg.
And what made you move to the island?
I was working in Winnipeg, and my first wife, who was a Victoria girl, had gotten tired of living in Winnipeg, and she decided that we were all moving back.
Okay, so Shawnigan Lake, actually, interesting place. So it's kind of in between two cities. What did you like about living up there?
I liked the fact that there was a lot of great rural opportunities, and property was certainly a lot less expensive. When we moved and turned our Winnipeg dollars into Victoria dollars, they became Shawnigan dollars at that time. And actually, the commute wasn't that big a deal then. I don't know that I would consider it now.
Yeah, because it's more of a cottage country now, and actually more of also a bedroom community from Victoria. So a lot more people are commuting.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get some transportation resolution so it is a little simpler. But right now, Colwood and the Westshore community suit me just fine.
Okay, so what area of Colwood are you living in?
We're in the old Ridley properties, so just by Dunsmuir School, Dunsmuir and Royal Bay. The kids have been able to walk to school, which has been great. And we often think about, does it make sense to move and get a newer house instead of a 1969 raised rancher, maybe some bigger closets or some hallways where you can actually pass one another. But the property is beautiful. It's almost a third of an acre, and the house is solid. So it's hard to think about whether we would actually do better. And it may be a case where we've got two more kids in school who will be graduating in the next couple of years, and maybe we'll end up turning that into a revenue property and then just getting something more like a condo.
So would you describe it kind of a BC box with split level?
Absolutely. That's it.
Those are really easy to renovate and to put a suite in.
Yeah, it already has a door right now between the upper and the lower. So all we need to do is lock it, and we'd have that. We do own a second property that is a revenue property. It's just like that. We rent the upstairs and downstairs suites.
Yeah, and I think for people looking, often they're trying to look for a new house with a suite, but the older houses like that often offer a more even distribution of upper and lower living.
Yes, especially when you can put a kitchen in that's the same size in the downstairs as the kitchen upstairs, and it helps with making sure that it's equal for income for both up and down.
So I used to teach at Dunsmuir. I don't know if you knew that.
I remember.
I really liked that school. I love the area. It's very flat compared to the rest of Victoria in general, I find. Very easy. And we're in a beautiful community right now. We're right near Royal Roads. What do you find there is for kids to do in your area?
Well, there's always access to parks and playgrounds. And we try to keep in Colwood the traffic to a minimum. There's a lot of good speed control in the area. Juan de Fuca is a great recreation facility for hockey, for golf, for tennis, for volleyball. The University Royal Roads itself has great recreational facilities. And then Langford offers the really nice YMCA facility. There's lots of different clubs, both and businesses that offer sports and music, and if you live in the West Shore, you realize how quickly it is that you don't need to leave the West Shore very often.
Yeah, and especially now with all the big box stores, so you don't need to go downtown. But also with there's the Royal Bay Bakery, which is one of my favorite places. We stopped twice there today, actually, for their apple fritters.
Nice, good choice.
What's your favorite thing there?
I would have the fritter.
Do you ever have the chocolate covered donut?
Once in a while. Is it okay if I say that?
And actually, they have, if you go during the day, they have sandwiches, pre-made sandwiches that are pretty good.
And their pizza buns are excellent.
And that was just recently taken over by a guy who previously the person made it solar friendly.
And most of the materials that their byproducts were all compostable, so they were really reducing their footprint and their garbage. There's a lot of innovation like that, and they also put in one of the first electric car charging stations in the West Shore.
That's right. So I'm just wondering, what do you think about the politics? We recently had a changeover in politics in Colwood.
Well, as the president of the Westshore Chamber of Commerce, my emphasis was on building business in the West Shore. There are 5 communities, so that's Colwood, Langford, View Royal, Metchosin, and the Highlands. They're all very different, but Langford has had the tradition recently of being the seat of business in the area, and Colwood needed to be in a position of developing more business. They couldn't just be the bedroom community of Langford, because and people may not always realize that it's not residences that really support the tax base, it's businesses. So I was really pleased to see that Colwood elected a city council that is much more business focused than in the past. And we've already had some shifting in focusing on new development, on getting things going through faster, and having Colwood being open for business.
So what do you think about the Royal Bay community? Because that's a great example of, and actually I think they brought some people from the development office in Langford to Colwood to sort of facilitate the process and development. A lot of people used to be frustrated with the other municipalities. They found Langford super easy to work with. That's one reason why all the development happened there. So to me, the keystone of development in the West Shore is actually Royal Bay. What do you think?
But the plans that I've seen and the meetings that I've attended, not only will it be a great residential area, it'll also be a great business hub, and may finally become the town center that Colwood has always lacked. With the pier, with the development of the beach, Colwood will be one of the few waterfront municipalities in the whole district. There's all kinds of proposals, and I'm looking forward to the day when my wife and I can just walk down to the beach and go to the pub and spend some time on the pier, and then head back at the end of the day.
What do you think about the new development that they're talking about with regard to transportation from the Colwood Pier to downtown Victoria?
I'm happy that they're looking at alternatives. My concern is that we use this as the only solution for transportation. I think it's unreasonable to think that a ferry alone will be able to solve getting all of the cars off the road or making transportation itself simpler. This has to be part of a multi-faceted approach to motor vehicle transportation, to light rail, to the ferry, and anything else. I think innovation is. We have some some friends. Anyone who's come to Royal Roads knows that the peacocks are a great feature here.
Apparently, they sometimes land up on the roof.
They do, and they're very friendly.
Okay, so I agree with you, and I think all 13 municipalities in Greater Victoria have their heads in the sands regarding development. I'm glad that I think the provincial government is heading a task force on looking at all of that. Do you think that there'll be amalgamation in the future?
As long as the CRD plays a significant role in the politics, I don't think so. One of the things that Westshore does really well is an example of how the 5 communities do coordinate a lot of services. In many cases, people would be agnostic as to where one municipality ended and another one began, as far as who picks up your garbage or who cleans your streets, or even what recreational opportunities there are for you. But if there ever came a time for that real level of coordination, then finally transportation would have to be addressed. And I will say, it used to be that the whole resistance from Victoria and Oak Bay was that the transportation problem was only a Westshore problem for people from Westshore coming into the downtown. But in the last 5 years, that's really shifted. There are a significant number of people who live in the city that work in the Westshore. Everyone faces it equally, back and forth.
Huh. That's interesting. I have noticed, for me, living in Metchosin, that there's a significant increase in traffic in the past 5 years. So it used to take me, and on Saturday or Sunday to get downtown, it takes me 20 minutes. But during the week, it may take me 30, 35. Now, coming from Toronto, I don't think that's a big deal still. The relative distance compared to what I used to do when I lived in Toronto, I would travel an hour and a half. So I think that the Greater Victoria area, first of all, has been discovered. Have you found that with net migration?
Well, you just see the building going up all the time. If you don't go into an area of town for a couple of months, the next time you're in, you're shocked by the new buildings that have gone up, the number of high-rises that have been built. This is an area, despite what people say about the cost of living here, people continue to move here.
Right, and I think also the Westshore offers affordable housing.
It does. It's been a real focus of all the municipalities to focus on families, with developments that serve families, with sports opportunities. When Stu Young decided to focus on bringing sports teams and committing in Langford, that really drove it being a destination place for families.
And golf is also a big thing here.
3 terrific golf courses and one very good executive length course as well.
I don't know what that means, but I'm sure you'll tell me.
It means you can leave your driver at home.
Okay, one last question about the Chamber of Commerce. How do people get involved in that?
Well, we're always happy to have more people participate in the Chamber. We have almost 400 members now. It's a great opportunity for people who are starting a business, looking to grow their business, and even better to look at being part of business growth and development and advocacy. The Chamber of Commerce is a unique organization in that it does span 5 different municipalities. We have the opportunity to be the voice of business for multiple levels of government rather than just being a single individual with one vote.
Right. And do you find, can you give me an example of where you've influenced decisions?
We've been very active in the speculation tax in opposition to. So far, we haven't had a lot of success, but my hope is that the government will continue to look at alternatives to this, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really create affordable housing. So we're also active in transportation, being a voice at the government level as to what the needs are of businesses. And we also take a look at some things that are not necessarily related to business, but environmental and anything like that.
Okay. All right. So to get in touch with the Chamber of Commerce, they would do what?
You could go right online to Westshore Chamber and just put it into your Google. We have a Facebook page.
Okay. And can they just go to a meeting without being a member?
Absolutely. We love to have visitors come. You can be my personal guest anytime.
Okay. All right. So we're going to be back now that we've had an introduction to Mike and the area. We're going to talk a bit about his own business, which is
Freedom 55 Financial. I'm a financial advisor. I'm dual licensed in insurance and investments, and I focus on young families.
Okay, so we're going to be right back and talk about that in just a moment. Take care and talk to you soon. Bye.
Vancouver Island Time is brought to you by the Briar Hill Group at RE/MAX Camosun, Victoria, where we bring local expertise and global presence to your property.
Hi, everybody. It's Jane Johnson with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun and host of Vancouver Island Time. And I'm here with...
Mike Reilly.
And what business are you in?
So I'm an advisor with Freedom 55 Financial. I'm dual licensed in insurance and investments. And I focus on specializing with working with young families. I developed a program I call Gaining Altitude that helps young families. So that's someone who's just gotten married, just bought a house, just had a child. Maybe you're in your first career job, and you're carrying maybe the biggest debt you have. How you can maximize that, and then also how you protect yourself against the risks that you're going to face. I help you put together something that we call your own financial flight plan, which is designed to help you get to your destination and manage your fuel loads and face turbulence.
Were you ever a pilot?
No.
Okay, just wondering.
But it's a good metaphor. I've got my pilot socks on.
Well, I mean, I totally appreciate it because I remember when I was a young mom, and actually when I started in real estate, that's who I focused on as well. Those people are totally overwhelmed, don't you find?
Absolutely. And one of the barriers that they have to working is that people often think, well, I've only got $25 or $50 I can spare. What's the point? And it's amazing what time can do to your money and starting good habits. So if I can sit down with a young couple and get them starting to commit to $25 a month to their future rather than just to another expense, very soon they start to build up something, and then that habit creates more habits, and it's really satisfying.
So how do you meet these clients?
I'm almost exclusively referral at this point. I've had enough great experiences with clients that they become advocates and say, we've had such a great experience and we're able to take vacations and we're not stressed out about what's going to happen. So they tell all their friends to sit down with me.
And where are you working, like geographically?
I have an office in Langford, and I also have a secondary office in the city area. So I'm pretty flexible as to where we can meet. But the other thing I do is I remember from when I had young children how difficult it was to set time aside. So on Tuesday and Wednesday evenings, I actually have 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock meetings that I'll come to your house. Doctors don't do house calls anymore, but your financial flight planner does.
Well, I've been following you on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle?
It's Altitude Financial.
Okay, well, that makes sense now that I know why you've named it. But I'm noticing not lots of little tips that you're providing people. What do you think now? So aside from putting a little money away, what about young families with insurance?
Well, the goal of insurance is to be there when something goes wrong. We insure our homes, we insure our cars, we insure some of the stuff that we have. But what I focus on is ensuring your ability to earn income. So life insurance for young families is there if they die too soon. So mom or dad does not come home and all of a sudden that income that the family relied on to pay the mortgage and put food on the table and have education savings is gone. So we set that aside. And then I also focus on something that may be even more likely, and that's the diagnosis of a critical illness. So if 1 in 3 people are going to develop cancer, if you have a family of 3 people, the statistics would bear out that somebody is going to be off work for a period of time, whether it's dad, mom, or one of the children.
What age is sort of optimal for getting that insurance?
The younger, the better. Insurance is one of those things that the sooner you get it, the less expensive it is. If you wait, you may become uninsurable. The great thing about critical illness and why it's a no-brainer for most people who learn about it is that it has a return of premium on it. So if you do not claim on your critical illness, you get all the money back again. So I focus on that just being another part of their savings plan. For children, if they don't claim on it, you get the money back at age 25. So that can be either money that mom and dad use, or it can help towards education. But what critical illness on a child does is it helps protect any RESPs, so education savings, from cannibalizing when a child develops leukemia, for example. Mm-hmm. So it's the alternative to a GoFundMe campaign.
Right. And I find too, like the decision to insure when you're younger really does pay off. Because when you get to my age where you realize your mortality, I'm over 50. that you start to think, okay, well, you're on the second half of your life, and I still have teenage kids, so I kind of wonder the premiums would be a lot higher.
Well, they will be. That's just the way the math works out. So the sooner the better. There are always alternatives, but the biggest issue that I will help people face or understand is that you may not be able to get insurance. Because as soon as you have a cancer diagnosis, you can no longer get life insurance, at least underwritten life insurance.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. And what about insurance regarding, like, when people buy houses, there's two types of insurance. One is mortgage insurance and the other is life insurance. Which do you recommend?
Well, I would recommend sitting down with an advisor to make sure that you take a look at your overall insurance needs. Some mortgage insurance is perfectly fine, that it insures just the mortgage if you die. But what I tell people to be careful of is that insurance that goes to a beneficiary that you designate, or is it creditor insurance that pays out the mortgage to the bank? Because in many cases, the surviving spouse may like to use that money for something else, but if the bank just gets the mortgage paid off, then all those options are gone.
I find that also with mortgages is that there are a lot more nuances to the terms and conditions, and people are more concerned with the rate or the monthly payment as opposed to the end terms and conditions that can affect their payout.
On the mortgage?
No, I just mean in terms of life insurance as well as mortgages, is that to me the focus isn't on the long term, the issues with the payout in the long term.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is people focusing on the monthly cost rather than what the tool does. Right. And so just like a mortgage, you may have a great rate, but it could be a mortgage that it's difficult to get out of or is not portable. The same thing's there with insurance, that we need to make sure that it's the right amount and it's the right type before we even look at whether the premiums are in the budget.
So how long have you been doing this?
I am in my 7th year of this.
And how has it changed in 7 years?
Well, there's been a number of changes. The most significant one about 3 years ago was that marijuana was no longer listed as a smoking. It's now just part of regular living. In the past, if you smoked marijuana, you got smoker rate, even if you didn't smoke.
Like if you ingested marijuana somehow?
Of any type, edibles. Yeah, it was just part of a lifestyle. We're about similar age, and if you remember back,
I look way younger than you.
Yes, you're aging much better. But when we were younger, generally the people who smoked marijuana had other lifestyle issues that would increase their morbidity rate. And now marijuana is so accepted in society that many people who maybe they're ultra marathoners and they don't drink, they're perfectly healthy. They're only and they don't drink, and they might have a joint once in a while. Up until 3 years ago, they were considered smokers, and that's been a change.
And do you find, are there more issues now with kids than maybe it's just because my kids are teenagers. I just noticed there are more issues than I previously thought, especially around drugs and stuff and mental illness and just more awareness, I guess.
Underwriting can be a challenge with younger people. There are more teens and early 20s who have been diagnosed with some type of depression, the kind of thing that people might have ignored in the past. Now they may have a diagnosis, and that always has to be listed on any insurance application. In most cases, it doesn't affect life insurance. It may affect a critical illness application. They may get a rating on that. But I'm always committed to working with my clients on an annual basis. And if we end up getting a policy that does have a rating on it, especially for depression, anxiety, or other emotional issues, that the next year, if that person hasn't claimed on it, I always apply to have that rating removed.
Okay, and what about jobs with risk? So I'm thinking helicopter pilots, scuba divers.
That's a great question. What we often find in the insurance industry with that is that some professions may actually be a flat-out decline, that there's just too much risk for the insurance company to take on. But in many cases, statistically, you're not as likely to die at work as you are just at home. So what often happens is that a policy will be issued, but with an exclusion. So if you're hit by a bus or if you develop cancer that anybody would have had, then the policy pays out. But if you're a pilot and you die as a result of a flight accident, then it doesn't pay out.
Right. Yeah. I know for my husband with scuba diving, it's now excluded.
Okay, so you've seen that firsthand.
Yeah.
And you still let him scuba dive?
He does own a scuba diving shop.
That's right, he does.
Nothing much I can do there.
Yeah.
So are people maximizing their TFSAs? Can they come to you for that?
They absolutely can. Most people don't maximize. So if you're an adult, if you were over 18 in 2009 when the program began, a tax-free savings account, you currently have a lifetime contribution limit of $63,500. I have a handful of clients that have been able to do that, but most Canadians are not saving as much as they should, or as much as they can. If you read the Globe and Mail or the National Post, every 6 months there's a story about how Canadians are carrying more debt than they have savings. And it's a sad reality that most young families are 1 or 2 paychecks away from disaster. So rather than focus on making people feel guilty about not contributing, it's trying to get people to just start. And then, like I said before, if you're saving $25 a month, now saving 30 is not such a big deal, or 50 is not such a big deal. It's just like adding an extra push-up to your exercise every day.
What about RESPs?
RESPs are a great savings tool for families because you're getting free money from the government. If you can contribute to a pension that gets matched, do that as much as you can. So the federal government matches 20% to whatever you put in. So if you put $100 in, they put in 20. That money has to be used for some type of educational purpose, but they're getting much more flexible every year as to what a post-secondary education program is. It doesn't have to be a traditional university program anymore. And then here in BC, we're very fortunate because when a child turns 6, there's a one-time $1,200 secondary education grant as well. That just we apply for it, and it gets deposited 2 or 3 months later.
I didn't even know about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's important for people to realize that is a separate application. So if you already have an RESP with another financial institution, don't just assume that the $1,200 gets deposited. You do have to fill out a grant application.
Oh, okay. Well, everybody, that's certainly a tip we should all be doing right away.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how do people get in touch with you?
Well, you can get in touch with me through the chamber. You can go to my website, which is mikereilly.ca. You can look me up on Facebook, and it's Wealth Health is my Facebook page. But sometimes it's Altitude Financial. I'm still struggling with the technology.
And so your handle for Instagram?
Altitude Financial.
Okay, and Reilly is spelled?
REILLY.
Okay. So if you're interested and also calling you directly?
Absolutely. I've always had my cell phone on, and it's 250-516-5758.
Okay. So if you're interested in knowing more about your life insurance and what other kinds of insurance?
Critical illness, disability, and then all of your savings and investment tools.
Okay, contact Mike. If you're more interested in the Colwood area, contact me. I'm Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Closen. Take care and see you soon.
Welcome to the neighborhood. We hope you have had some insight into West Coast living. If you know of someone or someplace that should be highlighted in our podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Please go to VancouverIslandTime.com and click on our Connect button. See you next week on Vancouver Island Time with Jane Johnston.